Dr. Nari Kim floated in the zero-gravity section of the research ship Hanul, watching the stars through the thick glass window. She had been studying alien life forms for 3 years now, but space still amazed her. The black emptiness dotted, with bright points of light, made her feel small and excited at the same time. "Nari, come look at this," called Sujin Lee from across the lab. Sujin was the ship's engineer, but she loved looking at Nari's samples when she had free time. Nari pushed herself off the wall and floated over to where Sujin was looking into the microscope. "What do you see?" Nari asked, settling beside her friend. "These cells are moving in patterns. Like they're dancing," Sujin said, her eyes wide with wonder. "How do they know to do that?" Nari smiled. She never got tired of showing people the amazing things that lived in space. Even the smallest creatures had their own ways of surviving in places where humans needed machines just to breathe. They communicate with each other using chemical signals, Nari explained. It's like they're talking, but with smells instead of words. The ship's captain, Dong-Woo Park, floated into the lab. He was a quiet man who took his job seriously. Nari had worked with him on 4 different missions, and she trusted him completely. "We're about to enter the Kepler sector," Dong-Woo said. "The area where we picked up those strange signals last month. Are you ready to collect samples?" Nari nodded. The signals had been puzzling scientists on Earth for weeks. They seemed to come from empty space, but they had a pattern that suggested intelligence. Nari hoped to find some kind of life form that might explain the mystery. "How long until we reach the coordinates?" she asked. "About 2 hours," Dong-Woo replied. "I'll let you know when we're close." As the captain left, Nari returned to her work. She was preparing collection containers when the ship suddenly shook. The lights flickered, and an alarm started beeping. Nari grabbed onto the nearest handle to steady herself. "What was that?" Sujin asked, looking worried. Before Nari could answer, Dong-Woo's voice came over the ship's communication system. His voice sounded tense. "All crew to the main deck immediately. We have a problem." Nari and Sujin quickly moved through the ship's corridors to reach the main deck. The other crew members were already there, looking at the main screen with shock on their faces. On the screen was a ship unlike anything Nari had ever seen. It was huge, maybe 10 times the size of the Hanul. Its surface was smooth and dark, with strange lights moving across it in patterns that hurt to look at. The ship had no clear shape that Nari could understand. It seemed to change as she watched it. "It appeared out of nowhere," Dong-Woo said quietly. "Our sensors didn't detect anything until it was right next to us." "Is it responding to our signals?" asked Hyun-Woo Choi, the ship's communications officer. "No response to any of our attempts at communication," Dong-Woo replied. "But it's scanning us. I can tell because our systems are acting strange." Nari felt her heart beating fast. In all her years studying alien life, she had found microbes and simple creatures, but never anything that could build ships. The scientific part of her mind was excited, but another part was very afraid. The alien ship moved closer. Through the window, Nari could see details on its surface. There were openings that might be doors or windows, but they were shaped in ways that made no sense for human eyes. The lights on the ship's surface seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Captain," Sujin said in a small voice, "look at our engines." Dong-Woo checked the ship's systems. His face went pale. "They're not responding. Something is controlling our ship from the outside." Nari watched as the Hanul slowly moved toward the alien ship without anyone touching the controls. She could feel her hands shaking, but she forced herself to stay calm. As a scientist, she knew that fear would not help them understand what was happening. "Everyone stay together," Dong-Woo ordered. If they want to communicate, we need to be ready. The alien ship opened what looked like a mouth. A bright light came out, and the Hanul was pulled inside. Nari felt the artificial gravity change as they entered the alien ship. The lights in their ship dimmed, and new sounds came through the walls. Clicks and humming noises that seemed to have a pattern. "Are those voices?" Sujin whispered. Before anyone could answer, the walls of the Hanul became transparent. Nari gasped. They were inside a huge space filled with other ships. Some looked like they came from Earth, but others were completely alien. All of them looked empty and dead. "How many ships are here?" Hyunwoo asked, his voice full of fear. Nari tried to count but gave up. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, ships from different worlds, all captured like the Hanul. The air in their ship began to change. Nari could smell something sweet and sharp at the same time. It made her feel dizzy. "They're changing our air," Dongwoo said, checking the life support systems. "Everyone put on your emergency masks." As Nari put on her mask, she saw movement outside their ship. Figures were approaching, but they were not human. They were tall and thin, with too many arms and legs. Their heads were larger than human heads, and they seemed to glow with a soft light. "Stay calm," Nari told herself and the others. "They haven't hurt us yet. Maybe they just want to study us." But as the alien beings got closer, Nari could see their faces. They had no eyes that she could recognize, but she felt like they were looking directly into her mind. The feeling made her skin crawl. The aliens reached their ship and did something that made the walls disappear completely. Nari found herself breathing the alien air despite her mask. The sweet smell was stronger now, and it made her thoughts feel slow and heavy. One of the aliens stepped forward. It was taller than the others, with markings on its skin that seemed to move. When it opened what might have been its mouth, Nari heard words inside her head instead of through her ears. "Humans," the voice said in her mind. "You will serve us." "Well," Nari tried to speak, but her voice felt thick and strange. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the Vorthak," the alien replied, still speaking directly into her thoughts. "We collect useful species. Humans are very useful." The alien leader gestured to the other beings, and they moved toward the human crew. Nari wanted to run, but her legs felt heavy and weak. The sweet air was making it hard to think clearly. "We have studied many humans," the Vorthak leader continued. "Your minds are easy to change. You will forget your old lives and live to serve us." "No," Dongwoo said, trying to sound strong despite his fear. "We won't serve anyone." The Vorthak leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "You have no choice. Your species has a gift. Your brains can be rewritten. We will make you perfect servants." Nari felt hands grabbing her arms. The alien beings were stronger than they looked. As they pulled her away from her friends, she could hear Sujin crying and Hyunwoo shouting, but the sounds seemed to come from very far away. The aliens carried the human crew through corridors that changed color as they walked. Nari tried to remember the path, but the walls seemed to shift and move, making it impossible to create a mental map. They reached a large room filled with strange machines. In the center were tables with restraints, and Nari's blood ran cold when she saw that some of the tables were occupied. Humans lay on them, but their eyes were empty and staring. They looked alive, but something important was missing from their faces. "Previous collections," the Vorthak leader explained, noticing Nari's stare. "They have been improved. Soon you will be like them. Nari was placed on one of the empty tables. The restraints locked around her arms and legs automatically. She could see her crewmates being strapped to other tables nearby. Dongwu was still trying to fight, but the alien drug in the air was making him weak. The process is not painful, the Vorthak leader said, moving to stand beside Nari's table. You will simply become better than you were before. All your fears and doubts will disappear. You will know only the joy of serving us. Strange machines descended from the ceiling above Nari's head. They had thin wires and sharp tools that gleamed in the alien light. Nari tried to move, but the restraints held her tight. Please, she whispered, looking at the alien leader. Don't do this. We can help you without changing us. I'm a scientist. I can teach you about humans willingly. The Vorthak leader tilted its head, considering her words. For a moment, Nari thought she might have reached it. Then it shook its head. Your knowledge will be more useful when you have no will to resist sharing it, it said. Begin the process. The machines moved closer to Nari's head. She closed her eyes and tried to remember everything she loved about her life, hoping those memories would somehow survive what was about to happen to her. The machines above Nari's head made soft buzzing sounds as they moved closer. She could feel something cold touching her forehead, then a sharp pain like a needle going into her skin. She tried to scream, but no sound came out of her throat. The neural interface is connecting, the Vorthak leader said to another alien nearby. This human has strong brain patterns. She will be very useful. Nari felt something moving inside her head. It was not painful anymore, but it was wrong. Something that did not belong there was spreading through her thoughts like water soaking into paper. She could feel her own memories becoming fuzzy and distant. The alien voices in her head became clearer. She could understand them perfectly, now as if they were speaking her own language. But she knew they were not using words at all. They were putting thoughts directly into her mind. Do not fight it, the Vorthak leader told her gently. Fighting only makes the process take longer. Accept the gift we are giving you. Nari wanted to refuse, but her anger was fading away like smoke in the wind. The thing in her head was changing how she felt about everything. Her fear was disappearing. Even her love for her friends and family was becoming weak and gray. She could see Dongwu on the table next to her. The captain was not moving anymore. His eyes were open, but they looked empty, like the windows of an abandoned house. The machines had finished with him already. Captain? Nari whispered, but he did not respond. He stared at the ceiling without blinking, breathing slowly and steadily. He is complete, the Vorthak leader explained. He no longer suffers from human emotions. He knows only peace and the desire to serve. Soon you will feel the same blessing. Nari watched as other aliens moved around the room, checking on the humans lying on the tables. Some of the people looked familiar. She thought she recognized a woman who had been a teacher on one of Earth's colonies. There was also a man who might have been a pilot, based on the uniform he was wearing. All of them had the same empty look in their eyes. They breathed and moved when the aliens told them to, but there was nothing behind their faces that seemed truly alive. How many humans have you taken? Nari asked. Her own voice sounded strange to her, calmer than it should be. Thousands, the Vorthak leader replied without emotion. Your species exists throughout this part of space. You are easy to capture because you are curious. You always want to explore and learn. That curiosity brings you to us. The thing in Nari's head pulsed stronger. She felt her memories of home becoming harder to remember. Her mother's face was becoming blurry. Her favorite foods did not seem important anymore. Even her love of science was fading into gray nothing. "Why do you do this to us?" she asked, though she was finding it harder to care about the answer. "Because you are perfect for our needs," the alien explained. "Most species fight us with weapons or try to hide from us, but humans can be changed completely. We can take your bodies and your knowledge while removing everything that makes you resist us. You become willing servants who never rebel." Nari tried to feel angry about this, but the emotion would not come. The interface in her head was smoothing away all her sharp feelings, making everything calm and flat. "What happened to the others from my ship?" she managed to ask. The Vorthak leader gestured toward the other tables. "Your engineer is nearly complete. The communications officer will be finished tomorrow. They will join you in service to our empire." Nari could barely see Su-Jin on a table across the room. Her friend's eyes were closed, but machines were working on her head just like they had worked on Nari's. Su-Jin looked peaceful, which somehow made everything worse. "She will not remember her old life," the alien continued. "None of you will. The memories cause pain and resistance. We remove them for your own good." "But those memories make us who we are," Nari said weakly. She could feel the truth of her own words, but they seemed less important than they had before. "You will be better without them," the Vorthak leader assured her. "You will have no sadness, no fear, no loneliness. You will know exactly what to do at all times. There will be no confusion or doubt in your life." The machines above Nari's head made different sounds now, softer and more rhythmic. She could feel the interface settling deeper into her thoughts, connecting to parts of her mind she had never been aware of before. "The integration is proceeding well," another alien said, checking readings on a device Nari could not see. "Her resistance is weakening quickly." Nari knew she should be fighting harder, but she could not remember why it mattered. The aliens did not seem evil anymore. They were just different. Maybe serving them would not be so bad. At least she would never have to worry about making decisions or facing problems alone. "That's right," the Vorthak leader said, and Nari realized it had been reading her thoughts. "Let the peace come. Stop carrying the heavy burden of independent thought." Time passed strangely. Nari could not tell if hours or days were going by. Sometimes she slept and sometimes she was awake, but the difference between the two states was becoming less clear. The aliens fed her through tubes and kept her body healthy, but her mind was changing into something else. During one of her waking periods, Nari saw that new humans had been brought to the room. They were strapped to tables and looked terrified. She wanted to warn them or comfort them, but those feelings were very weak now. Mostly, she just watched with mild curiosity as the machines began working on their heads, too. One of the new humans was a young man who looked like he might be from Korea, like Nari. He had the same dark hair and features that reminded her of home. But when she tried to remember what home looked like, the images in her mind were gray and faded. "Help me," the young man called out when he saw her looking at him. "Please, tell me what they're doing to us." Nari opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. What could she tell him? That the aliens would take away everything that made him himself, that he would stop caring about his own life. These facts seemed true, but they did not seem important, enough to cause distress. "She cannot help you," the Vorthak leader told the young man. "She is nearly one of us now. Soon you will understand as she does." The young man screamed and struggled against his restraints. Nari watched without feeling, upset. His fear seemed unnecessary and wasteful. Soon he would be calm like her, and then he would be happier. "The process is almost complete for this one," an alien said, pointing at Nari. "Her brain patterns show full compliance. We can begin the final programming." New machines descended from the ceiling. These were different from the ones that had put the interface into her head. They had screens that showed images and made sounds that bypassed her ears and went straight into her thoughts. Nari saw pictures of the Vorthak Empire, ships full of aliens traveling between star systems, worlds where humans and other species worked together under Vorthak control. Everyone in the images looked peaceful and content, doing their jobs without complaint. "This is your new purpose," the voice in her head explained. "You will use your scientific knowledge to help us understand other species. You will help us improve our collection methods. You will be proud to serve such a great civilization." The images felt more real than her old memories now. Nari could see herself working in Vorthak laboratories, studying alien creatures and finding ways to capture them more efficiently. The work looked interesting and important. "I understand," she said quietly, and meant it completely. "Excellent," the Vorthak leader said with satisfaction. "Release her from the table. She is ready to begin her service." The restraints opened, and Nari sat up slowly. Her body felt strange after lying still for so long, but she was not uncomfortable. Discomfort was just another useless emotion that had been taken away from her. She looked around the room and saw her former crewmates standing quietly against the walls. Dong-Woo, Su-Jin, and Hyun-Woo were all there, wearing simple gray clothing. Their faces were calm and empty, just like hers probably was now. "Report to Laboratory 7, the Vorthak leader commanded. "You will begin cataloging our newest specimens." Nari nodded and walked toward the exit. Her legs felt steady, and her mind was clear. She had work to do for her masters, and that was all that mattered now. Behind her, she could hear the young man still screaming as the machines began to change. His mind too, but the sound meant nothing to her anymore. Nari walked through the corridors of the Vorthak ship with steady steps. Her gray uniform was clean and simple, just like the clothes worn by all the other human servants. She carried a data tablet that showed her daily assignments, though she never questioned what she was asked to do. 6 months had passed since her conversion, but time meant little to her now. Days and nights blended together in a smooth flow of work and rest. She felt no boredom, no excitement, no curiosity about anything beyond her assigned tasks. "Human Nari," called Commander Vextar, the Vorthak leader who had supervised her conversion. "Come to Laboratory 7. We have new specimens to catalog." "Yes, Commander," Nari replied in a flat voice. She changed direction and walked toward the laboratory without any trace of emotion on her face. The laboratory was filled with containers holding various alien creatures. Some were tiny and glowed with soft light. Others were larger and had too many legs to count. Nari's job was to study them and write reports about their biology and behavior. Her scientific knowledge was still perfect. The neural interface had not damaged her education or her ability to understand complex biological systems. In fact, her work was more efficient now because she never got distracted by wonder or personal interest. "These specimens came from the Kepler sector," Commander Vextar explained, gesturing to a row of new containers. "The same area where we found your ship. Analyze them and determine their potential value." Nari nodded and began her work. She Ulas moved from container to container, taking measurements and making notes. The creatures were beautiful and strange. but she felt nothing when looking at them. They were simply objects to be studied and classified. As she worked, other human servants moved around the laboratory. She recognized some of them as former scientists and researchers from various human colonies. All of them worked with the same calm efficiency that she did. Dongwu was there, operating a machine that preserved biological samples. His movements were precise and careful, but there was no sign of the leadership and courage he had shown as a ship's captain. Su Jin worked at a computer terminal, her engineering skills now used to maintain alien equipment. The conversion process continues to show excellent results, Commander Vextar said to another Vorthak officer. These humans retain all their useful abilities while showing perfect obedience. Nari heard the words but paid no attention to them. Conversations that did not involve her work assignments were not important. She focused on the small creature in the container before her, noting its unique cellular structure. The creature reminded her of something, but she could not remember what. Sometimes fragments of her old life tried to surface in her mind, but the neural interface quickly pushed them back down into darkness. Her past was irrelevant to her current function. Human Nari, Commander Vextar addressed her directly. Your analysis of the specimens from Sector 7 led to a successful harvest of 3 new species. You have proven very valuable. Thank you, Commander, Nari said without any pride or satisfaction. Praise meant nothing to her, just like criticism would have meant nothing. We have a special assignment for you, the commander continued. There is a human colony on planet Taeyang that has been avoiding our collection efforts. You will accompany the next harvest mission to provide intelligence about human behavior and technology. Nari accepted the assignment without question. She had participated in several harvest missions over the past months, helping the Vorthak understand how to capture humans more efficiently. Her knowledge of human psychology and culture made these operations much more successful. The harvest ship, Korthak, departed 3 days later. Nari sat in the passenger section with other human servants who had been assigned to the mission. None of them spoke to each other unless their work required communication. Personal conversation was another useless human behavior that had been eliminated. Through the ship's windows, Nari could see the approaching planet. Taeyang was covered in blue oceans and green continents, with white clouds swirling around it. The sight triggered a strange sensation in her mind, but she pushed it away and focused on her mission briefing. The colony has approximately 50,000 humans, the Vorthak mission leader explained. They have detected our previous approaches and have built defensive systems. Your knowledge will help us overcome their resistance. Nari studied the colony's layout on her tablet. The humans had built their cities in locations that would be difficult to attack directly. They had also developed communication networks that could warn the entire planet if Vorthak ships were detected. They will try to evacuate when they see our ships, Neri reported in her emotionless voice. But they will not abandon their families. If we target the residential areas first, the military personnel will come to defend them instead of fleeing. The Vorthak officers made pleased sounds at her analysis. Nari felt no guilt about helping plan the capture of her own species. The humans on Taeyang would be improved by conversion, just as she had been improved. They would become useful servants instead of wasting their lives on pointless emotions and individual desires. The harvest began at dawn. Nari watched from the command center as Vorthak ships surrounded the planet. The humans below activated their defenses and sent desperate calls for help to other colonies, but no assistance would arrive in time. Deploy the gas, the mission leader ordered. The same sweet-smelling substance that had been used on Nari's ship was now being released into Taeyang's atmosphere. Within hours, the human defenders would become too weak to fight effectively. Nari provided continuous analysis of human behavior patterns as the operation proceeded. She predicted where the colonists would try to hide and which routes they would use to escape. Her recommendations helped the Vorthak capture thousands of humans with minimal resistance. By the end of the day, the major cities had fallen. Lines of captured humans were being loaded into transport ships, ready to be taken back to the main Vorthak vessel for conversion. Nari watched the process with complete detachment. "Excellent work," the mission leader told her. "Your species' own knowledge is the most effective weapon against them." Among the captured humans, Nari noticed families being separated. Children cried for their parents, and adults struggled against their restraints, trying to protect their loved ones. These displays of emotion seemed foreign and wasteful to her now. One young girl, maybe 10 years old, stared directly at Nari through the transport ship's window. The child's eyes were full of fear and confusion. She seemed to recognize that Nari was human, but could not understand why she was helping the aliens. For just a moment, something stirred in the depths of Nari's mind. A memory of herself as a child, looking up at the stars and dreaming of discovering new forms of life. But the neural interface detected this unauthorized thought and suppressed it immediately. "Is there a problem?" Commander Vexitar asked, noticing that Nari had stopped moving. "No problem, Commander," Nari replied. "I was simply observing the efficiency of the capture process." The harvest of Taiyang was considered a complete success. Over 40,000 humans were taken for conversion, while the remaining population was left to maintain the planet's infrastructure under Vorthak supervision. Nari's contribution was noted in the official reports as exceptionally valuable. Back on the main ship, Nari returned to her laboratory duties. She processed samples from dozens of new species that had been discovered on Taiyang. Her work was perfect, just as it had been every day since her conversion. But something had changed during the mission, though Nari was not consciously aware of it. Deep in her mind, below the level where the neural interface could detect it, her suppressed memories were slowly organizing themselves. The sight of the frightened child had awakened something that refused to stay buried. Her scientific training, even under alien control, continued to function. Without realizing it, Nari began to study the neural interface itself. During her meditation periods, when her conscious mind was quiet, her deeper awareness mapped the connections that controlled her thoughts. She noticed patterns in how the interface worked. It was very good at suppressing emotions and memories, but it was not perfect. Sometimes, for brief moments, fragments of her true self managed to surface. The interface would quickly push them down again, but each time this happened, Nari's buried consciousness learned a little more about how the system functioned. The Vorthak believed they had created the perfect servant. Nari performed her duties with absolute loyalty, never showing any sign of rebellion or independent thought. But beneath the surface, in places the aliens could not monitor, something human was quietly learning how to resist. Commander Vexitar often praised Nari's work to other officers, using her as an example of successful human conversion. He had no idea that his perfect servant was slowly becoming something else entirely. The very scientific mind that made her so valuable was beginning to understand the technology that controlled her. Nari continued her daily routines without any change. In behavior, she worked, ate, slept, and followed orders exactly as expected. But in the hidden corners of her consciousness, a plan was forming. She did not know it yet, but she was about to discover that the Vorthak had made a critical mistake when they tried to control a human scientist. The alarms on the Vorthak ship screamed through the corridors as another harvest mission began. Nari walked calmly toward the transport bay, carrying her analysis equipment. She had done this dozens of times before, and today felt no different. From any other day, the target is New Busan Colony, Commander Vextar informed the mission team. Intelligence reports indicate they have developed new defensive technologies. We need the human servants to provide tactical analysis. Nari nodded and took her assigned seat in the transport ship. Around her, other converted humans sat in perfect silence, waiting for their orders. The ship launched smoothly and headed toward the planet below. New Busan was a mining colony built into the side of a mountain range. The humans there had carved their city deep into the rock, making it harder for the Vorthak to attack from above. Nari studied the colony's layout on her tablet, noting the defensive advantages and weaknesses. The humans will retreat into the tunnel systems when we arrive, she reported to the Vorthak officers. But they will leave scout teams on the surface to monitor our movements. If we capture the scouts first, we can force them to guide us through the tunnels. The mission leader approved her strategy. As the transport ships approached the colony, Nari watched the human settlements growing larger in the windows. Something about the buildings looked familiar, but she could not identify why. The attack began with the usual gas deployment. Nari observed as the sweet-smelling clouds spread over the colony, making the human defenders weak and confused. Through her monitoring equipment, she tracked the humans as they fled into their underground shelters. There, Nari pointed to a group of readings on her scanner. 5 humans hiding in a supply cave near the eastern entrance. They appear to be civilians, not soldiers. Vorthak troops moved to capture the group while Nari continued her analysis. The operation was proceeding perfectly, just like all the others. The humans below had no chance against the superior alien technology and the tactical knowledge provided by their own converted people. The captured civilians were brought to the transport ship for processing. Nari glanced at them briefly to assess their condition before returning to her work. They looked frightened and confused, which was normal for fresh captures. But as she turned away, one of the prisoners called out to her. "Nari, Nari, is that you?" The voice cut through the neural interface's control like a knife through paper. Nari stopped moving and slowly turned around to look at the speaker. It was a young man, maybe 25 years old, with the same facial features that she saw in mirrors. "It's me, Jaemin," the man said desperately. "Your brother. Don't you remember me?" The word brother hit Nari's mind like lightning. For one brief moment, the neural interface's suppression failed completely. Memories flooded back into her consciousness. Memories of growing up with this person, of teaching him about science, of promising to take him on a space mission someday. "Jaemin," she whispered, and the name felt like coming home. The neural interface detected the breach immediately and began fighting back, trying to push the memories down again. But something had changed. The connection between Nari and her brother was stronger than the alien technology had expected. Real human love, buried but never truly destroyed, began to break through the artificial calm. "What have they done to you?" Jaemin asked, seeing the empty expression returning to her face as the interface regained control. "Nari, you have to fight this. You're stronger than they are." Nari wanted to respond, but the interface was flooding her mind with commands to ignore the prisoner and continue her work. She turned away from her brother and tried to focus on her scanner readings, but the numbers on the screen kept blurring together. "Human Nari, Commander Vextar said sharply, noticing her distraction. "Report on the tunnel systems." Nari struggled to form words. Part of her mind wanted to give the tactical report that would help capture more humans. But another part, the part that remembered loving her brother, was screaming at her to refuse. "The tunnels extend deeper than our sensors can detect," she finally managed to say. "It may be difficult to flush out all the humans." It was not exactly a lie, but it was not the complete analysis she would normally provide. Nari felt a strange sensation that took her a moment to recognize: guilt. She was feeling guilty for helping the aliens, and guilty for not helping them enough. The neural interface could not decide which emotion to suppress. The mission continued, but Nari's performance was no longer perfect. She provided accurate information when directly ordered, but she stopped volunteering additional insights that might help the Vorthak capture more humans. The officers noticed her reduced efficiency, but attributed it to equipment malfunction. During the return flight, Nari sat in her assigned seat and tried to appear normal. But inside her mind, a war was raging. Every time she looked at her brother, among the other prisoners, more memories broke through the interface's control. She remembered teaching Jae-min to use a microscope when he was 12. She remembered him bringing her flowers he had picked, claiming they were alien specimens for her to study. She remembered promising their mother that she would always protect him. The neural interface fought back harder, sending waves of artificial calm through her thoughts. But the memories were multiplying faster than it could suppress them. Each recovered memory seemed to unlock others, creating a cascade of returning consciousness. The interface is not functioning properly, Nari realized, and the thought was her own, not something implanted by the aliens. For the first time in months, she was truly thinking for herself. She began to analyze the neural interface the way she would analyze any other biological system. The device worked by creating artificial, neural pathways that overrode natural human thought patterns. But it was designed for the rigid mental structures of Vorthak minds, not the chaotic complexity of human consciousness. The interface could suppress human emotions and memories, but it could not truly destroy them. They were still there, buried, under layers of alien programming. And if the suppression ever weakened, even slightly, the human mind could begin to reclaim itself. That's why they needed to remove our memories completely, Nari thought. The interface isn't strong enough to hold down everything that makes us human. But her memories had not been completely removed. The process had been interrupted by her emotional connection to Jae-min. Now that connection was acting like a crack in a dam, allowing her true self to leak through. Over the following days, Nari carefully hid her growing awareness. She continued to perform her duties, but she began to study the other converted humans around her. She noticed tiny signs that their programming was not as perfect as the Vorthak believed. Dongwu sometimes paused for a fraction of a second when given orders, as if some part of him was still trying to think independently. Sujin occasionally touched her hair in a way that seemed familiar, like she was remembering an old habit. Hyunwoo's fingers sometimes moved as if he were trying to type messages, even when he was not near any computers. The human consciousness was fighting back, Nari realized. The neural interfaces were strong, but human minds were stronger. They just needed the right trigger to begin breaking free. Nari began to experiment during her meditation periods. Instead of letting her mind go blank as the Vorthak expected, she tried to trace the neural pathways that controlled her thoughts. The interface had taught her brain to follow certain patterns, but she was learning to recognize those patterns and work around them. It was like learning to see in the dark. At first, she could only sense vague shapes and movements in her own mind. But gradually, she began to map the alien technology that had enslaved her. She discovered that the interface worked both ways. It could send commands to her brain, but it could also receive information from her thoughts. If it can receive, Nari thought carefully, then maybe it can be overloaded. She began to plan. During her work shifts, she acted like the perfect servant the Vorthak believed her to be. But in the quiet moments, she explored the limits of the neural interface. She tested how much independent thought she could have before the system detected and suppressed it. The breakthrough came when she realized that the interface was connected to a network. All the converted humans were linked to the same control system, and that system was linked to the Vorthak's own psychic communication network. They made a mistake, Nari thought with growing excitement. They connected us to their own minds. She had found a way to fight back. The same technology that enslaved her could become a weapon against her captors. But first, she needed to wake up the other humans. And that meant starting with the people she cared about most. Nari looked across the laboratory at Dongwu, who was quietly organizing specimen containers. Soon, she would try to reach him the same way Jae-min had reached her. She would use the power of human connection to break through the alien control. The Vorthak thought they had created perfect servants. They were about to learn that they had actually created their own worst nightmare. Humans with access to alien technology and the will to use it. Nari waited until the late shift, when fewer Vorthak officers were watching the laboratories. She moved carefully toward Dongwu, who was cleaning sample containers with his usual mechanical precision. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept, her face calm and emotionless. "Captain," she whispered, using his old title instead of his designation number. Dongwu paused for just a moment, his hands stopping their work. The word had triggered something in his buried memories. Just as Nari had hoped, he looked at her with confusion in his eyes. "Do you remember the Hanul?" Nari asked quietly, standing close enough that the surveillance equipment could not easily detect her words. Dongwu's face flickered with emotion before the neural interface tried to suppress it. But Nari had learned how to fight the suppression. She focused her thoughts on their shared memories and pushed them toward him through the neural network that connected all the converted humans. Images flowed between their minds. Their ship in space, their crew working together, the moment when they first saw the Vorthak vessel. The memories were weak and fuzzy, but they were real. "Nari?" Dongwu said her name like he was waking up from a dream. "What happened to us?" "The aliens changed our minds," Nari explained quickly. "But we can fight back. The system they use has weaknesses. I've been studying it." The neural interface in Dongwu's head began to push back harder, trying to restore his artificial calm. But Nari kept feeding him memories through their connection, giving his true personality something to hold on to. "I remember now," Dongwu said, his voice becoming stronger. "They turned us into slaves. But you're still fighting them." "We're all still fighting them," Nari corrected. "Our real selves are still inside, buried under their programming. We just need to wake each other up." Over the next several days, Nari and Dongwu carefully approached other converted humans during quiet moments. They started with Su Jin, their former engineer, who had always been curious about how things worked. "Su Jin," Nari whispered during a maintenance period. "Do you remember how to fix broken machines?" The question triggered Su Jin's professional instincts. She began to answer automatically, then stopped as real memories started surfacing. Her hands moved to her hair in that familiar gesture Nari had noticed before. "I used to fix the engines on the Hanul," Sujin said slowly. "But that feels like it happened to someone else." "It happened to you," Dongwu assured her. "The aliens want you to forget, but you don't have to." One by one, they awakened more humans. Hyunwoo remembered his communications training when they mentioned radio frequencies. A converted teacher named Ms. Park recalled her students when they asked about children. Each awakening made the next one easier, as the growing network of aware humans could support each other's recovery. But they had to be very careful. The Vorthak monitored their servants for signs of rebellion. Any obvious change in behavior would result in immediate reconditioning or worse. The awakened humans learned to act like perfect servants while secretly planning their resistance. Nari continued her laboratory work, but now she was studying more than just alien specimens. Every day she learned more about the neural interface, network. She discovered that the system was connected to the Vorthak's own psychic communication grid, which controlled their entire ship. "If we can overload their network," she explained to the growing group of aware humans, "we might be able to disrupt their control over all of us at once." The plan was dangerous and complex. Nari would need to access the main network hub, which was located in the ship's central command area. She would have to do it during a critical moment when the Vorthak were distracted and could not immediately respond to the attack. The opportunity came when the ship approached a heavily defended human system called the Terra Nova Cluster. The TE. Vorthak were planning their largest harvest operation yet, targeting 5 planets with over 1 million humans total. All their attention would be focused on the military campaign. "This is our chance," Nari told the Secret Resistance Network. "When they begin the attack, their psychic network will be fully engaged with coordinating their forces. That's when I'll strike." The awakened humans had spread throughout the ship, taking positions in key locations. Sujin was assigned to the engine control room, where she could potentially disable the ship's power systems. Dongwu worked in the transport bay, where he could help free the thousands of humans held in the cargo holds. Hyunwoo had access to the communication systems and could send warning messages to other human colonies. As the Vorthak fleet moved into attack position around the Terra Nova system, Nari felt the neural interfaces of all the converted humans, activating at higher levels. The aliens were using their human servants as living computers, processing tactical information and coordinating the complex assault. Nari allowed the interface to connect her to the network, but instead of simply providing analysis, she began to trace the data pathways back to their source. The Vorthak psychic network was like a vast web of interconnected minds, and she was learning to navigate it like a spider walking on silk threads. She could sense the alien commanders coordinating their forces, feel their confidence as they prepared to capture another 1 million humans for conversion. The Vorthak believed they were unstoppable, masters of psychic technology that no other species could understand or resist. They were wrong. Nari reached the central hub of the network and began her attack. Instead of the calm, organized thoughts the system expected, she flooded it with pure human emotion, rage at what had been done to her people, love for her brother and friends, desperate hope for freedom, and most of all, the chaotic creativity that made humans impossible to fully control. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Vorthak network, designed for their ordered and predictable thought patterns, could not process the storm of human consciousness that Nari unleashed. Feedback loops began forming as the system tried to contain emotions it was never built to handle. Across the ship, converted humans suddenly felt their interfaces failing. Memories came rushing back as the suppression systems overloaded. People who had been empty shells for months or years were suddenly themselves again, confused and angry, but wonderfully, completely human. Commander Vextar screamed as psychic feedback tore through his mind. All around the command center, Vorthak, officers collapsed as their neural connections were burned out by the chaotic energy of human thought. "All humans, listen to me," Nari broadcast through the failing network, her voice reaching every converted person on the ship. "Remember who you are. Remember what they took from you. Now help me take it back." The rebellion exploded throughout the ship as thousands of awakened humans turned against their captors. In the engine room, Su Jin began shutting down power systems. In the transport bays, Dong Wu and others opened the cargo holds and freed the unconverted prisoners. But the Vorthak were not helpless. Those who had not been directly connected to the network during Nari's attack began to fight back. They activated security systems and sent armed troops to retake critical areas of the ship. "We need to reach the main computer," Nari told Dongwu over the communication system. "If I can access their central database, I can learn everything. About their empire, their weaknesses, their other ships, their plans." Fighting raged through the corridors as humans and aliens battled for control of the vessel. The humans had the advantage of numbers and surprise, but the Vorthak had superior weapons and knowledge of their own ship's layout. Nari fought her way toward the command center, her mind still partially connected to the alien network. She could feel the Vorthak trying to rebuild their psychic defenses, attempting to regain control of their converted servants. But something had changed permanently. The human minds that had been awakened could not be put back to sleep. They had learned to resist the alien technology, and more importantly, they had learned to use it for themselves. As Nari reached the central computer, she realized that the neural interfaces worked both ways. The Vorthak had given their human slaves access to their technology, thinking it would make them better servants. Instead, it had created something the aliens never expected: humans with psychic abilities and the knowledge to use them. "You made a mistake," Nari told Commander Vextar as she began downloading the Vorthak database. "You tried to control us, but you gave us the tools to control you instead." The commander tried to stop her, but Nari's mind was no longer fully human. The neural interface had changed her, just as it had changed all the converted humans. They were something new now, a hybrid of human consciousness and alien technology, and they were winning. Nari stood in the command center of the Vorthak ship, her hands moving across the alien control panels with impossible skill. The neural interface that had once enslaved her was now allowing her to access systems that no unmodified human could ever understand. Around her, the rebellion had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Commander Vexatar lay unconscious on the floor, his psychic abilities burned out by the feedback Nari had created. Other Vorthak officers were either dead or too damaged to fight back. The ship belonged to the humans now. "Nari," Dongwu called from across the command center. "We have control of all major systems. The remaining Vorthak forces have surrendered." Nari nodded but kept working at the computer. She was downloading everything: star maps showing the locations of other Vorthak ships, lists of captured species from dozens of worlds, and most importantly, the complete technical specifications for the neural interface technology. "This is incredible," she said, her voice filled with wonder for the first time in months. They've been collecting intelligent species for over 1,000 years. Humans aren't the only ones they've enslaved. Su-Jin approached from the engineering station, her face dirty but smiling. The power systems are stable, and I've locked out all the Vorthak security codes. They can't regain control of their own ship. Through the ship's communication system, reports came in from all sections. The human prisoners in the cargo holds had been freed and were receiving medical attention. The converted humans were helping each other recover their suppressed memories. The Vorthak military operation against Terra Nova had been completely disrupted. "What do we do now?" asked Yunwoo, who had been sending warning messages to human colonies across the sector. "We have one ship, but the Vorthak have hundreds more scattered throughout space." Nari turned away from the computer, her expression thoughtful. The neural interface was still active in her brain, but now she controlled it instead of the other way around. She could feel the psychic networks of other Vorthak ships, distant but detectable. "We don't destroy them," she said quietly. "We change them." Her friends looked at her with confusion. After everything the Vorthak had done to them, the idea of mercy seemed impossible. "Listen to me," Nari continued. "The neural interfaces work both ways. We proved that today. But there's something else I discovered while I was connected to their network. The Vorthak aren't naturally evil. They're just limited." She gestured to the unconscious Commander Vextar. "Their minds work in rigid patterns. They can't understand concepts like creativity or adaptation. That's why they need other species to serve them. They literally cannot think of new solutions to problems. So they steal other people's minds," Dongwu said angrily. "Yes, but think about what that means," Nari replied. "They're not conquering because they want power. They're conquering because they're desperate. Their own psychology makes them unable to grow or change. They need us more than we need them." Su-Jin frowned. "Are you saying we should feel sorry for them?" "I'm saying we should help them," Nari said. "Not because they deserve it, but because we can create something better than revenge." Over the next few hours, Nari explained her plan. The neural interface technology could be modified to work in reverse. Instead of suppressing human consciousness and replacing it with alien control, it could enhance human abilities while sharing human creativity with Vorthak minds. "We become partners instead of masters and slaves," she explained. "They get access to the adaptability and innovation they need to survive. We get access to their advanced technology and psychic abilities." The idea was radical and dangerous. Many of the freed humans wanted nothing more than to escape and warn other colonies about the Vorthak threat. But Nari's plan offered something unprecedented: the chance to transform their enemies into allies. "The first step is proving that it works," Nari said. "I need to establish a connection with Commander Vexitar's mind, but without the domination. Programming, a true partnership between human and Vorthak consciousness." Dongwu shook his head. "That's too risky. What if he tries to take control of you again?" "He can't," Nari replied confidently. "I understand the technology now. I know how to protect myself, and more importantly, I know how to show him something his species has never experienced before: voluntary cooperation." The process took place in the medical bay, with Nari's friends standing guard. She used a modified neural interface to connect her mind to the unconscious Vorthak commander, but this time the link was equal and voluntary. Commander Vextar awakened, slowly, his alien features showing confusion and pain. The psychic feedback had damaged his natural abilities, leaving him vulnerable and afraid. "Why am I still alive?" he asked in his own language, which Nari now understood perfectly through their mental connection. "Because killing you would be a waste," Nari replied, her thoughts flowing directly into his mind. "You have knowledge and abilities that could help both our species survive and grow." For the first time in his long life, Commander Vextar experienced human emotions directly. Through Nari's memories, he felt the love she had for her brother, the loyalty she shared with her friends, and the curiosity that had driven her to become a scientist. "These feelings," he said with wonder, "they are so strong and chaotic. How do you function with such internal conflict?" "The conflict is what makes us creative," Nari explained. "We don't just follow patterns like your species does. We can imagine new possibilities and find unexpected solutions to problems." She shared more memories with him, moments of human innovation, art, and discovery. She showed him how humans had learned to survive on different worlds, how they had developed technologies through trial and error, how they had found joy in exploration and learning. Commander Vextar absorbed these experiences with growing amazement. His rigid mind began to expand as it encountered concepts it had never imagined before. For the first time, he understood what his species had been destroying when they enslaved other civilizations. "We have been wrong," he admitted, the words difficult for his alien psychology to process. "We took your minds because we thought they were inferior. But they are not inferior. They are different. They are valuable in ways we cannot be. And your minds are valuable in ways ours cannot be," Nari replied. "Your psychic abilities, your advanced technology, your long lifespans. These are gifts that could benefit everyone if shared willingly." The partnership that formed between Nari and Commander Vextar became the template for what followed. Other awakened humans began forming voluntary connections with captured Vorthak officers, creating hybrid consciousnesses that combined the strengths of both species. The process was not easy. Many humans were too angry and traumatized to forgive their captors. Many Vorthak were too rigid in their thinking to accept change. But slowly, gradually, a new form of cooperation began to emerge. "We need to contact the other Vorthak ships," Nari said during a planning meeting weeks later. "If we can demonstrate that this partnership works, we might be able to end their empire of slavery forever." Dongwu, who now shared a mental link with a Vorthak engineer, nodded in agreement. "The technical possibilities are incredible. Their ships could be modified to support true cooperation instead of conquest." Sujin added her own thoughts. "And we could help them understand other species better. Instead of enslaving everyone, they could learn to communicate and trade." The first contact with another Vorthak ship was tense and dangerous. The ship's crew could not understand why their commander was voluntarily sharing control with humans. They were prepared to attack until Nari and Commander Vextar demonstrated their hybrid abilities. Working together, they solved a complex engineering problem that had been bothering the ship's crew for months. The combination of human creativity and Vorthak technical knowledge produced a solution that neither species could have found alone. "This is what partnership can accomplish," Nari broadcast to the alien crew. "We are not your enemies or your slaves. We are your potential equals." One by one, other Vorthak ships began to accept the new paradigm. The process took years and required careful negotiation with dozens of different commanders and crews. But eventually, the Vorthak Empire transformed into something entirely different. a confederation of species working together for mutual benefit. Nari found herself at the center of this transformation, serving as a bridge between human and alien consciousness. She had become something new, neither fully human nor fully Vorthok, but a hybrid that embodied the best qualities of both species. Her brother Jae-min joined her research team, studying the long-term effects of the neural interface modifications. Captain Dong-woo led joint exploration missions, seeking out other civilizations that might benefit from the new cooperative model. What we learned, Nari explained to a gathering of human and Vorthak leaders, is that control and domination are signs of weakness, not strength. True power comes from voluntary cooperation and shared growth. The galaxy would never be the same. The Vorthak had tried to enslave humanity and instead had found something far more valuable, partners who could help them become more than they ever imagined possible. And humanity had proved once again that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity for growth.